Hi, hello, and welcome back to Ikigai Wellness Podcast. Guess what? World Mental Health Day 2025 is coming, and this year we are dedicating two different special episodes to something we often don't talk about: mental health in catastrophes and emergencies. Now, if you are listening to me right now in Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or Audible, I want you to know something. There is also a video version of this episode waiting for you on my YouTube channel, Ikigai Wellness Podcast. So, if you would like to see me face to face, like we are just having a coffee chat together, hop over there anytime. Quick note before we dive in. As a wellness consultant, I always look at the bigger picture of health. That is, your mind, emotion, relationships, and social life, not just your physical body. Because mental health is just as important as your physical health. And honestly, it deserves that focus, attention, and care. That is why today we are zooming into on mental wellness in times of crisis, because these are the moments that truly test us, right? So let's start right here. What do we mean when we say catastrophe or emergency? Think about it. It could be a natural disaster like earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, wildfires, anything. It could be a humanitarian crisis like war, conflict, displacement, refugee situations. Or it could be a pandemic, something we all got a taste of with COVID-19. It could be a climate disaster, that kind of anxiety so many young people feel now about the planet's future. It could even be community tragedies like mass violence, major accidents, or sudden losses that shake a whole town. And of course, there are personal catastrophes, the ones that don't make headlines but hit us like an earthquake in our own lives, like sudden death of a loved one, a major illness diagnosis, or losing a job, or even losing your home. Now, how do these events hit us mentally? Well, first, there will be immediate shock. Our brain almost freezes. Some people go into denial. Others experience acute stress. Then come the short-term effects: anxiety, fear, hypervigilance. Even nightmares, not being able to sleep. And if this continues, it can turn into long-term consequences like PTSD, depression, or even complicated grief. There is also something we call collective trauma. That is, this is when an entire community or society goes through pain together, like after a flood or during war, or even the global grief we all share during COVID. Now, who are the most vulnerable here? Children, the elderly, and those with pre-existing mental health conditions. But honestly, the ripple effects touches everyone. One person's trauma affects their family, their workplace, their community. It spreads out like circles in water. And here is where statistics hit hard. Did you know that globally mental health disorders rise significantly in populations exposed to disasters? Millions every year are directly affected by flood, earthquakes, or by war. But here is the catch. In many of these emergencies, less than 1 in 5 people who need mental health support actually get it. And recovery times? They are so much longer if support doesn't come in early. Which is why we are having this conversation today. So, here is the big question. Why is accessing mental health services during emergencies such a challenge? Let's break it down. First one is structural barriers. That is, sometimes hospitals or clinics are literally destroyed. Communication lines are cut. Mental health professionals may be displaced themselves. There is often no clear emergency mental health protocol, and insurance and payment systems totally collapsed. And then there is transport. How do you even reach a clinic when roads are gone? Then comes social and cultural barriers. This one hurts. Stigma actually intensifies during these crises. People tell themselves that others have it worse, so I shouldn't complain. No, that is wrong. And cultural attitudes differ too. In some regions, mental health is not openly discussed. Language barriers make it harder for displaced population. And sadly, gender often plays a role. Women and marginalized groups may struggle more to access help. Plus, mental health often takes the back seat because people prioritize food, shelter, physical injuries, which is understandable but dangerous in the long run. Then comes resource barriers. This is huge. In many disaster-hit places, there just aren't enough trained mental health professionals. First responders often have zero training in psychological first aid. Funding for mental health in emergency responses is so low compared to physical relief. And then, of course, technology gaps. What good is teletherapy if there is no internet? So you see, it is not just one barrier. It is layers and layers stacked together. Now, let's ask, why does access matter so much more now? Because climate change is making disasters more frequent. Because global displacement is at historic highs. Because COVID-19 left us with a mental health pandemic of its own. And here is the tough truth. When we don't provide services, the long-term cost is massive. Broken families, lower productivity, even more burden on healthcare systems later. Economically too, studies shows that early intervention actually saves resources in the long run. But it is not all hopeless. There are bright spots. Some countries are doing it right, like integrating mental health into emergency plans. We have seen teletherapy pop up in disaster zones, mobile mental health units, community-based support models, even peer-to-peer support networks, where survivors help each other to heal. These stories give us hope that things can be different if we care enough to act. Alright, now let's bring it closer to you, my lovely listener. What can you actually do? If you are in a crisis right now, please know you are not alone. Reach out to crisis hotlines or emergency services in your country. Many countries have specific mental health crisis numbers. If not, there are online and telehealth options and even some free or low-cost resources available globally. And if absolutely nothing is available, don't underestimate the power of community support. Sometimes talking to a trusted friend, a family member, or even a support group online can be a lifeline. If you want to help someone else in crisis, here is the golden rule of psychological first aid. Be calm, be present, listen without judgment. Don't minimize their pain by saying things like, oh, others have it worse. No, don't do that. Instead, say, I am here, I am listening, and I care. And you don't have to fix everything. Just being a safe presence is powerful. And if you are moved to do more, you can volunteer with organizations or even advocate for stronger mental health emergency services. And for all of us, building resilience before crisis hits. Think of this as your emergency mental health kit. Learn coping strategies like grounding exercise, breathing practice, journaling. Build your own support network now, so you are not isolated later. Practice stress management and emotional regulation. Know your triggers. Create a simple mental health action plan. Like, who would you call? What would you feel or do if your life suddenly flipped upside down? And finally, nurture your community connections. What I mean by community is your comfort zone people. So let's wrap this up with a few key takeaways. First one is mental health crises in emergencies are real, valid, and they deserve urgent attention. Second one is access to mental health services during emergencies is not optional. It saves life. Third one is each of us has a role to play in reducing stigma, spreading awareness, and pushing for better access. Fourth one is building resilience today prepares us for tomorrow's challenge. And before we sign off, this was just part 1. In our next episode, we are going to explore another kind of emergency. The ones that don't make headlines but can feel just as devastating. Yes, I am talking about personal crisis, toxic relationship and emotional abuse. Because mental health matters in all kind of crises, whether they are global or happening silently behind closed doors. Until then, here is my gentle request. Share this episode with someone who might need this. Check it on a friend today and learn about the mental health resources available in your area. And of course, follow the Ikigai Wellness podcast so that you don't miss episode 2, the part 2 of this episode. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and as always, keep living your Ikigai. This is Dr. Amritha signing off.